I'm Abby Scott, and I'm the head of our career management group for MBAs at Berkeley Haas. Well, we saw a nice jump in salaries for our 2021 graduates from Berkeley Haas. The mean average starting salary, so just base salary, was around $143,000. And the median was $149,000. So that was up pretty significantly from the year before. Yeah, it's always an effort to collect the information, but what we do is we really try to take a personalized approach to getting to know all of our students. So each of them has a career coach on our team that they're pretty responsive to because they've worked with them, or at least most of our students along the way. So we do deploy that asset, that coach, to follow up and find out what ultimately the salary was. It's all collected through a database, through an online form, and compiled that way. But we do ask the students to go into this system that we call CMG Bears to record not just their base salary, but all of the other components of the compensation. Certainly, COVID's had an impact on everything, including our graduates. That said, the salary numbers have not really been impacted, which has been remarkable, and I think says a lot about the MBA in the marketplace. But certainly, in the height of the pandemic, it took our graduates a little bit longer to find roles because a lot of companies really shut down their HR operations, or had them really focus, I should say. They shut down the recruiting for a while so that their HR folks could focus on other things. There was a lot of turnover in those jobs, and things just generally took a little bit longer. So our MBAs were really patient, understandably, given what was going on in the world, as the employers were as well with our students, because some just ran into some challenges that they had never had before, and forced them to cancel interviews and things like that. So the pandemic impacted a lot. Also, of course, a lot of our students did their summer internships virtually, in particular that first summer of 2020, but even last summer in 2021. We have some students that we've spoken to that still haven't met their colleagues face-to-face, but they've been able to onboard virtually and start jobs virtually. So certainly there's been an impact on so many things. The trends have continued, and the two largest industries are definitely technology and consulting. And so our top employers won't surprise you, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, as well as Google, Amazon, and a handful of other top tech companies. One of the other things that's really fun actually about working at Berkeley Haas, and that I know it attracts a lot of students as well, is the diversity of industries that students go into. So while those two, consulting and tech, tend to be the largest and have been for the last many years, we also have students that go into just about everything, financial services, global health, consumer packaged goods and food, startups, etc. So diversity of industries, I think, is one of the reasons people choose Berkeley Haas. I think, you have to make a financial decision when you're looking at MBA programs, and salaries across the board really have come up pre-MBA as well as post-MBA in the war for talent in the last year. And so, I think it's wise to look at what you're going to get as a return on your investment, including the opportunity cost of those 2 years. That said, we really do see a very positive ROI on our full-time MBAs within just a few years. When we've looked at the data, it looks like it really just takes, on average, four-ish, 3 to 5 years, I'd say, to pay that off, given the the bump that they see. And remember, we're really just talking about base salary here. We know that when students come to Berkeley Haas and graduate, 43% of them have some sort of stock options or grants. Not just with tech companies, it's actually quite typical with other types of companies these days where they're getting some equity in the company, really a form of long-term compensation. So that isn't even included in those numbers. Entrepreneurship is alive and well here. Some of it is our location and some of it is our reputation, faculty, that sort of thing. So there are two ways that I think about entrepreneurship. And you're right to note that people who start their own companies, they actually come out of our data per the standards for our industry. They're not included. That said, it tends to be around 5% of our total class will launch a new startup upon graduation. As you can imagine, they team up with each other. They find other scientists and engineers on the broader Berkeley campus. And there are tons of programs and things to help them not only find each other and come up with the seed of an idea, but to actually jump into incubators and accelerators to further those ideas. So that's one bit. The other bit, which is much more common, is the group of students who are entrepreneurially minded, but they want to go work for a startup and maybe learn the ropes with someone else's idea. So that tends to be between, I think this last class, it was just a little over 10% of the job-seeking students that went to startups immediately upon graduation. So we support those students heavily, and they are included in our numbers. There are a few things. So one is that the base salary is just one component. I think our students are pretty savvy, as are most MBAs, at trying to think holistically about their package. And there are financial components. I mentioned stock options earlier. There are bonuses, sometimes sign-on bonuses. In fact, usually about 2/3 to 3/4 of the class will get a sign-on bonus. That's pretty significant. And then there are other financial rewards for performance that are hard to measure, but often are rewarded, in particular in industries like financial services. But there are lots of other factors to consider as well. Things like, what division am I going to be in? What will the impact of my work be on not just the company, but the greater society in which we live? What does the career trajectory look like for those MBAs that have joined the company in the last couple of years? What will the location decision be for me, if I've got a partner or if I want to be near family, things like that. So we really encourage people to take a holistic approach and not just rely on, not just base salary, but even compensation. It's so much bigger than that. We do measure this because we want students to feel that return on their investment, but we don't actually look at, or what we don't think is the most important number is how the career management group helped them, but really how the school helped them. Because as you mentioned, things like the alumni network, faculty have a role in this. And so when we measure what percent of the jobs were primarily secured through the Berkeley Haas ecosystem and network, which includes our group, as well as some of these other groups, that number is around 70%. And so the other 30%, when you may think, well, gosh, how do they get their jobs? It tends to be things like a fair number go back to their former employer. At the end of the day, they may have come from a job that they really liked, but they wanted to make sure that they didn't miss out on an opportunity when they were young to get the full-time MBA, to embrace the network and all of that. So a fair number do go back to former employers. And then truly for some of the companies that are teeny tiny or very specific to a candidate search, it doesn't make sense for them to be recruiting on campus or even in some cases posting jobs. It's really about the student going out and finding the right role. Let's say they're looking for a job in digital health in London. That is a very specific search. And so we're going to give them tools and support to help them find their way, but the student will claim credit, as they should, for finding the job on their own because, because they were the ones that made it happen. Well, I think there are a few things. I don't think it's out of line with our rankings overall, which tend to be, we've been fortunate enough to be in the top 10 in most rankings in recent years. So it does align well there. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'd say that the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, where we're based, tends to be a place that attracts people. And they tend to want to stay here after graduation. And, it's very funny, whenever I've gone on recruiting trips with our admissions team, I'm always excited to go to different areas and meet people who assure me they're going to return back to that area upon graduation and have a lot of questions about our support in those areas, which we have. So I'm always excited to meet those folks. When I see them a year or two later, there's something that happens. They fall in love with the Bay Area and they change their mind and want to stay. So we do end up with quite a few people that are graduating and staying in the local economy, which is a really expensive place to live, I will say. And so salaries compensate for that. They recognize that. So it's a long way of saying we are rewarded as well, I think, by the location in which our business school sits and the average salaries here, which are, sort of essential to living here and having a good life. Our team is fairly traditionally structured. We have a team of career coaches who are industry agnostic, and they really help students figure out what they want to do, come up with a plan, prepare their story, come up with a networking strategy, and so on. Then we have a group of people who are industry specific, and they come in three forms. One, relationship managers who are connected to industry, trying to stay tight with alums and recruiters in their space. Two, industry specialists who are actually people that sit in companies. They're usually Haas alums, but they're a part-time workforce of ours. So if you're looking to get a job in business operations in the technology sector, we may not have a specialist on our team, on our primary full-time team that knows that, but we've got this extended workforce. And then the third group is the second-year peer advisors who we've got about 40 of them that work for our team. They've just come back from a summer internship in that industry, and they're great helping the first-year students. So outside of that, one thing that we identified a few years ago was just how active students are at helping each other. And so we launched a Slack channel, a series of Slack channels actually pretty quickly blossomed from that by industry that are career focused, where students, even our students in the part-time MBA program, the working professionals who are in the jobs, they're feeding leads back and forth to each other. So that's been really fun to see take off because the students supporting each other, we knew was there, and this has just provided a great platform for that. There have been a couple of trends in the last 10 years in the career management group, not just at Haas. I think this is pretty common to other schools, but I'll share what's happening here. The first is, I mentioned this team of career coaches. So we have started to hire people who have not just career coaching training, but really leadership development training. So we recognize that the career journey is not unbundled from the leadership journey. And so we've got folks that on the team that really have that expertise and can work with a student not only when they're here in school, but beyond. Many of them stay in touch with them as alums, where they have full access to our coaching team. The other thing is just the investment in resources. We have grown quite a bit in that time in the last 10 years, just in terms of people resources. When I described all the different industry focused people, in particular, that segmentation where we've got the people sitting in companies with the very unique specific expertise, that's a new service that has been launched in the last few years that's been really popular with the students. I'm really proud to lead a team, especially during a pandemic, that has stayed together, that has been supportive of one another, has grown closer to our students, I'd say, because of everything that's going on. We've had this unique opportunity to get to know each other in new ways. So I'm really proud to lead this team, and can't wait to see what we do next as things open up. And hopefully we let go of this crazy time that we're in.